I'm Keita Boyce. I am the wife of Jake Boyce. We first got married July of 2017 and things were great at first, but quickly went south as I started noticing the man I was in love with on the surface was selfish, mean, a bully, manipulating, angry, and lacked empathy. The things that he would do is he would gaslight me when I tell him that he's hurt me. He would drink a lot of his problems away when he knew that alcohol was just not okay with me in abusive ways. He would yell, he'd call me names and curse at me, he'd tell me to shut up. He would ruin holidays or important days to me, and he'd be mean to me in public, or he'd put me in a place in public where I can't react or say anything because it would cause a scene. And he would always promise to be better but never followed up. I was confused by the man I married who would say, "I love you," but acted the complete opposite. It seemed over the course of 4 years that the same problems would come up. Jake would give an illusion that he would change. Then the next days would be great. And then after that, we were back to the same problems again. Fast forward to the summer of 2021, as things continued to worsen, someone he had looked up to for years, Jonathan Welton, came out in the public about his marital issues and that him and his wife had been struggling with. Jake heard that Jonathan's wife, Karen, had said, and it hit him like a load of bricks because he saw himself in a lot of what she had said about Jonathan. It was at that point that I had felt hope because I felt that Jake had hit rock bottom and we could only go up from there. Jake had heard about the Bulletproof Husband program and we both agreed to give it a shot in hopes that it would help Jake. The first 2 weeks that Jake was going through the program, I noticed amazing results and changes in his behavior. He was kind, more gentle, and our home was enjoyable versus being a battlefield. However, those 2 weeks were short-lived as Jake had told himself that the men in the program were way worse than he was, and he had convinced himself that he was no longer the issue in our marriage. So from those 2 weeks and 6 more months on, Jake chose not to take the program seriously, and he chose not to do any of the work or use the tools that they gave him to better himself. So everything in our home was problematic still, and in January of 2022, Jake stopped the program. I got pregnant with our second daughter that month, and we decided to move back home to Minnesota to be closer with family. Our problems were at their worst in our marriage, and I was desperate for help. I had been following Jonathan Welton on social media, and his post of success gave me hope that Jake too could someday be like him, which is a healed man. After another bad night with Jake, out of desperation, I decided to message Jonathan Welton on social media. I asked for his advice, which ultimately he told me that I needed to give Jake the slap, which ultimately is kicking him out. I was afraid of doing this only because I had protected Jake's image for years and didn't want family and friends to now know our marital problems that we've been having for years. Ultimately, what drove me to push past that fear was my 2 daughters and not wanting them to have a broken home, broken parents, or suffer childhood trauma from Jake and I. I knew if there was any hope for Jake or my family, I needed Jake to leave and take his healing seriously for the sake of our family. I asked Jake to leave June of 2022. This is when Jonathan took over and had some one-on-one time with Jake over the phone. A couple of days later, Jake had told me that through the talks with Jonathan, he realized more about himself and his hurts. He realized that he needed to heal and truly work on himself, and that he wanted to be a better husband and father. It has been about 5 months since I asked Jake to leave, and since then, Jake has been using the tools from the Bulletproof Husband program to work on his emotional work. And because he took the program and tools seriously this time, he is no longer a ticking time bomb of reactiveness and anger. He is kind and he's more gentle. I notice how patient he is with our 2-year-old and myself. I've noticed whenever an issue comes up, Jake is looking me in the eye. He's asking questions and responding versus reacting. Marital problems are getting solved and we are actually growing together as a couple versus problems being swept under the rug and us growing distant. For the first time ever, I was able to express to Jake that I've enjoyed being around him again, and I have noticed consistent changes in him. With the tools from Bulletproof Husband, the accountability from Jonathan and other men in the group, and the coaching and one-on-one from Jonathan himself, Jake has finally been able to break free from a lot of his hurts and triggers, which presented themselves as problems in our marriage. He's been able to heal some wounds from emotional work. I don't know where my marriage would be today or if Jake would even be in the picture at all if it had not been for Jonathan and Karen publicly sharing their story and being vulnerable, and for the Bulletproof Husband program giving Jake the tools and accountability to heal. I truly believe my marriage and family is saved because of it. 5 months ago, when I thought of who my husband was to me, it was a selfish man who lacked empathy and someone I did not feel safe to be around. Today, Jake overall is a man and husband I can say I love and am proud of. So I'm very thankful to the Bulletproof Husband and Jonathan.